Buffalo Plus, your interactive look at the week in football. Brought to you by Connors and Ferris.
Nah, I wasn't stirring up. Y'all need to stay off my Twitter.
That's a little weird.
Oh, one game closer. Let's go.
Bills Mafia, what's up, baby?
I'd like to think I'm not too much of a psychopath.
Y'all know what hit it for, you know what I mean? Rolls Royce driving, private jet flying.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Go Bills.
All right, welcome back to the Buffalo Plus YouTube channel presented by Connors and Ferris, Mike Catalana, Dan Fates. I am Jenna Cottrell. We're going to be talking about the 5 biggest storylines heading into training camp. But before we do, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy our content. All right, gentlemen, we are about 2 weeks away from the start of training camp back here in Rochester at St. John Fisher University this summer. We know fans gearing up. Tickets are already sold out. But I want to talk to you guys just about how you feel, your thoughts, everything heading into the season. Mike, I want to start on the offense. And I know it's a group that we've talked about quite a bit. Just the pass catchers and what you expect, where they're at, what you think ahead, and how you think it'll play out in terms of that group this year.
Yeah, Jenna, I think it's a question. I think it's a question mark because the one guy we know as a player, Stefon Diggs, is a star, great player, obvious number one of the best in the league. I think there's levels of questions about every other guy that's a pass catcher. I'll take Dawson Knox out of the mix. We kind of know what Dawson is. I think he's been a pretty consistent guy in his role. But besides that, when you start looking at it and you say, Gabe Davis, I think, is an absolute key for this offense. If Gabe shows, and I won't say flashes, I think that's unfair to him. If he shows those moments we have seen Gabe be a really good player, a weapon for Josh, a deep ball guy, all those things. I don't expect him to be a 1. I don't expect him to even be a great number 2. I think he can be really good and really consistent if that's the case, if he's healthy, because they've made a lot about his health. I think if that's the case, Jenna, Dan, I think it changes everything for the wide receiver group because the other guys are either guys who haven't had a chance, haven't done it, too young, rookies, whatever it is. Yeah. There's obvious questions about them. Gabe has been around and he's in a contract year. I think he is huge for them.
Yeah, Mike, and Gabe doesn't need to be Kansas City playoff Gabe. I think that's the point that you're trying to make. It's about being consistent. And I look at some of the other teams like sharing the wealth. Like you don't need to have 2 guys that have 100 receptions and over 1,500 yards. It's not about that. It's about having other options so that Stefon Diggs can't be double teamed without making the other team pay for it. Like that's where I'm at. So while everybody, I agree, Mike, as we've said, like Gabe Davis, big point of this upcoming season. Jen, I also want to bring up Dalton Kincaid because I think a lot of people think that he will fix some of the issues, and I'm just not as sure about that as a rookie tight end coming into the league.
You're not as sure because you're not sure he'll get as many targets as people expect, or you're not sure that
I don't even think it's as many targets. It's just the track record of rookie tight ends making impacts on teams their rookie year.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's absolutely a fair kind of a way to look at it. I think especially what we've seen from the Bills and how, I mean, they kind of have slowly worked in guys in terms of even, I think you look at, I mean, Dawson Knox in his rookie season and the targets that he got. And Dalton Kincaid is going to be a talent out there. I do find that he will find his niche, but when you talk about targets, I don't know how many that really does equate to. I agree. I don't think it's going to be some like breakout scenario. I think what they're looking for is consistency and the ability to show poise in those moments where maybe a rookie would struggle in. But I think if you get that, going back to Mike's point, like you can unlock a level of this offense and have a little bit of that pressure off of Stefon Diggs because there has been so much pressure on Diggs. And for Gabe Davis to hopefully be healthy and to have Dalton Kincaid add an element, I think that could really just open things up more in terms of what this offense can do.
And Jenna, to your point that you're talking about targets, like he better get a lot of targets. Like,
but what's a lot of
took him in the first round? I know, but like he's a first round player. Like we always talk about, like you're trying to find starters in the first round, like guys that make impacts. And that's
Yeah.
why I'm not even saying it from the side of, oh, I don't know if they'll ease him in, or I don't know how many targets he'll get. He better get targets, because otherwise, what are you doing?
Yeah, let me just say this. I don't think this is the type of thing we're talking about game planning. I think it comes down to who 17 trusts and builds that trust. Because if he shows that, he will get more. I mean, you can draw up the play. He can be one of the route combinations that he's running. Josh has got to say, I can go to Kincaid. And I think that has to build. But it does come down to the trust the quarterback has in the guys. And we don't know who picks up that trust, maybe even early. It doesn't mean it's going to be one guy for the whole time. I mean, early in the season, Deontay Hardy could be a guy making the plays.
You love him.
Well, he's a different type of player with that speed. I'm saying is this can all evolve, but I really do believe when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen, he can get the ball to almost anybody in almost any way, but it comes to trust. And he still has that trust in Gabe. We saw it last year.
Yeah.
And maybe it was, to the detriment of some other stuff, because he's not afraid to throw him the ball. And that's what I'm saying is we can talk all about Ken Dorsey designing plays, but Allen's got to look for the guy and say, I'm going to go to him. And I think this is an evolution, Jenna, during the season. It could start. I mean, you could even have a moment early in the year where Dalton Kincaid catches 6 passes. But come on, this is the NFL in 2023. Like, that doesn't mean he's going to do it the next week and the next week. That would be an aberration, not the way it usually goes.
I think that's why I said I think I look for Dalton Kincaid to add some consistency, and if he can prove that, I don't think he's going to be force-fed targets. I don't think it's going to be a scenario like that. But in key moments, can he prove he can catch the ball? He can maintain possession, all of these things. And then that would be a nice change up moving forward for the Bills, instead of having to force feed guys like Gabe when at moments they're struggling, or trying to look for Stephon Diggs in double coverage. So I think that's more what I was talking about. But Dan, to your point, like I don't expect them to what are the number of targets? Like, do you have an idea of the number of targets you expect him to get? Because I don't think it's going to honestly be a tremendous amount.
Targets wise, it should. Is it crazy to say like he's got to get 50 plus, in my opinion?
Yeah. I mean, that's not crazy at all. I mean, you're talking about 17 games, right? So you're talking about what? It's 20.
I feel like that's so much more.
It's 3 a game.
Yeah.
That's 3 a game?
It's targets.
I want more than that.
Yeah.
I want more than that. I'm not good at math. I was trying to think of what 5 targets a game would be. And and my math is probably as bad as my spelling.
That's honestly, that's really scary for your household.
Case, we can say Dan was right about Dan being wrong. How about that?
Also, Dan, I loved it because you were covering up some of Dan was right. So it just said Dan is aight.
Yeah.
Dan is all right. He's all right. It's fine.
I think this evolves, guys. I think it does. And this is why I say there's questions. Hey, look, there's some excitement here when you look at the pass catchers and you go, what can Hardy bring? Even Trent Sherfield, he's a guy who's played in the league. At least he's had some, could make a few plays for them. Again, and we don't know what ends up happening with Khalil Shakir this year. They're all out there of guys who have ability and they can get them the ball. And teams will see something different if they go to that 11.5 personnel more often, because they haven't really done that much with the Bills. So all these things can play into it. But I think everything starts with, obviously, Allen and his faith in the guys he's throwing the ball to. They will almost dictate to him how many times they get the ball.
I agree. I think this wide receiving room, these pass catchers go as far as Gabe and Kincaid will take them. I think that will be how we evaluate these these pass catchers at the end of the season will be based on how Gabe and Dalton Kincaid perform.
I think that's a fair thing to say.
I think that's a huge part of it. Yeah.
I think it's a fair thing to say because, I mean, obviously, Stephon Diggs can add, but you look at the other pass catchers beyond who you're talking about. I mean, well, Khalil Shakir, how will he evolve? Like Hardy, like those guys being good would be found money for this team. in my
Correct.
opinion. Like you're not expecting those guys to add a huge piece to your pass catching ability. So yeah, I agree. I hear what you're saying, Dan. I agree with that.
By the way, can we refer to Kincaid as a tight receiver? Does that work? Because it's not a wide end. It doesn't work for wide end. He's going to, I know you could say, well, I guess that's kind of funny, wide end. Well, hey, come on. You could use that joking, the actual title. I say he'll be he's going to play in that slot position. And I think he's going to line up there a decent amount. But there's a difference between lining up and being on the field and actually getting Josh Allen throwing him the ball. And you can say all these nice things in July. It's when it's in, let's just even say September and October, is he going to him with the ball?
I hope Kincaid does what the Bills hope happens, which makes Ken Dorsey's job easier by dictating what defenses show and can do against that 11.5 personnel. If that's not the case, I think that there's a massive disconnect between Dorsey and the offensive scheme and everything.
If that were to happen, how early on do you think that would happen though?
I can give it 6 games.
6 games? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, look, they've been planning for this. This is the plan. They're gonna attempt to make this work. They're not gonna go in and say, let's see how it evolves. Attempt. Yeah. But it doesn't all fall on the play caller. It falls on the player, it falls on the quarterback, it falls on the O-line. There's a lot of things that play into it, but yeah, I think that's certainly going to be a big part of the plan.
Well, you bring up O-line. We've talked about it. The O'Cyrus Torrence they drafted. They brought in other guys. Dan, do you feel like they've done enough to address? I think they have good depth, but do you think they've done enough to address what they needed to do in the offseason?
They're putting faith in Spencer Brown. I think Spencer Brown we talked about Gabriel Davis and Dalton Kincaid. The X factor on the offensive line will be Spencer Brown. He had a back injury last year. I think they're giving that extra time. They showed faith in him by not taking another tackle in the draft. I've always said on here, watch where your money is. That will say all of what it is. Well, not taking a tackle shows they have faith in Spencer Brown. He needs to be better. He needs to be rookie Spencer Brown more than second year, and hope it's just a sophomore slump by Spencer Brown and the back injury. I like what they did with O'Cyrus Torrence. Again, I thought he would have been a great first-round pick. To get him in the second round was great value. I think he shores up the middle. You know what you're going to get with Mitch. You kind of know what you're going to get with Dion. And then I think Ike could be an interesting play coming into this training camp. I think he's a wild card along with Ryan Bates. So I like the depth and the versatility that they can, hey, this guy's not playing well in training camp, or this guy's having a little slump. I think they have pieces that they can actually interchange. I know you want 5 set guys. We talked about it last year. It's kind of like a bullpen in baseball. You want to know who your 7th inning, 8th inning, 9th inning guys are, so everybody knows their role. But I think early on in training camp, there's enough pieces. Like I said, we're not even talking about Connor McGovern, who all paid a decent amount of money for. So who are the top 5 guys? I guess we're going to find out, because I Jenna, to your point, I do like depth, but I'd rather have 5 good guys and not have to worry about depth and the top 5 stay healthy.
I mean, I obviously hear you on that. I just think that they've done a better job of adding depth and adding pieces in terms of, like, unfortunately, injuries are a part of it. And I think you have some flexibility. You don't want to see guys go down, but I mean, we saw the injuries last year that plagued this offensive line. I mean, David Quessenberry having to be in there, all this stuff. So it's like, you want to make sure that your team has somebody to go to. But I hear you. I think the fact that there's not, there's going to be some fluidity about who's out there isn't always great.
Jenna, I think you're making a good point about them addressing. I always say this, did they fill a need? They addressed a need. They brought guys in. Let's see how they are. But I think the difference with this offensive line, as opposed to some of the better ones in the league, is that if you're just talking about depth, what happens if this guy goes down or that guy goes down? I think that's when you're really confident in at least 4 of the 5 guys that are on that line. I think their issue is, to Dan's point, we're talking about the right tackle here. And he's a guy they really like. And yes, you want to be able to be good, at least if he's out or if Dion's out or Mitch is out. Like, you have to make those, you got to be ready for those situations. What do you do? Number one, what do you do for several weeks? What do you do in the middle of the game? Who's ready to go? Those are all the things they work on. But man, if you're starting from a position of you got that 5 guys and you're confident in that 5, and if somebody's out, okay, we're good. The 4 guys pick them up and you keep going. My worry with them has been, they just haven't been a very good 5-man unit. And I don't think they have gotten the level of focus, I'll say more than criticism, that I think a lot of other parts of this team have gotten. And I think it has been an issue. And look, Aaron Cromer's a guy who's had success in this league, won a Super Bowl with the Rams, right? He's coached with the Bills before. He's got that. But this is a year, man. You gotta get these guys right, or get the right guys in there. And when I talk about confidence in Josh with who he throws the ball to, we all noticed a difference in Josh. He loves his O-line. Josh loves everybody. But he didn't have confidence in that O-line. He was bailing out at times when he normally wouldn't. And you need to give your quarterback that feeling like, the right tackle's got me. I'm hanging in this pocket. I'm going to get Gabe Davis down the field. And Dan, I don't think he had that last year.
Hey, do you know what? The pass catcher is better? If Josh had more than 2 seconds to throw the ball, that would also be helpful.
Funny how that all works together.
Yeah. How about that? Like, maybe if Josh got protection for 3, 4, 5 seconds, it's more time for guys like Gabe and other guys to get open. So it goes hand in hand, because some guys have lacked going back to the pass catchers, they've lacked separation. You can gain separation over time. It is very hard to cover. Ask Trey White, ask Kaiir Elam. It's very hard to cover for 4, 5, 6, 7 seconds in the NFL. That can help Josh with an offensive line play.
I just want to ask both of you guys, does the Bills' confidence in Spencer Brown, though, give you a moment to be like, okay, they believe, they've supported this guy, they've defended this guy? Does that have any effect on your viewing of him being able to come out of it and play better this season?
There's reasons for them to be confident in Spencer Brown. He drafted him. Brandon Beane drafted him. They see the ability. That's great. They should have confidence in him. But I mean, there's reasons why guys don't maintain these opportunities that they've earned or been given, however you look at it. Yeah. You got to stay healthy. You got to stay on the field, and you got to perform at that level. You're right, Jenna. They do. They see something in the guy. And sometimes the start is rough, and then eventually they figure it out. They stay healthy, and you're like, this is the guy we expected. I think it's good that they have that confidence. And you're right. Yeah. They obviously, they did go out and get you're going to get me on the name. Art Shell's nephew, Shell, that they signed the other tackle. Yeah. Yes. But those are guys that have they obviously didn't say we need a right tackle. So they believe that. But I think a little bit of it is they're confident, but it's kind of hope, right? That the guy they picked is the guy.
What's the saying? Hope in one hand and crap in the other, and see which one fills up first.
I've never heard that.
I've never heard that one either. My dad used to, well, that's a good one. My dad used to say I don't know if he took this from somebody. He who lives in hope dies in despair. It's kind of like you just sit there and go,
terrible.
Well, it's kind of, he grew up during, World War II. Yeah, it's a different world. But it's kind of like if you just say, I hope. I think you're right, Jen. I think there's a reason to be cautiously optimistic because the Bills really like what they see physically in Spencer Brown. I mean, he's a monster. Yeah. So you just got to say, let's see how he plays.
Yeah. There's more playing.
I just want to play devil's advocate for 1 second. Oh. You talk about that hope, like you're clinging on to hope. I wonder if he's always said, like, Brandon Beane's human. Like, we all make mistakes. And Brandon Beane has said that he wishes, the Wyatt Teller got away. Yeah. Does he ever have some of those thoughts? Like, man, if we let Spencer Brown go and he turns out to be another really good tackle somewhere else. Like, I don't know. Cause if I'm sitting there, are you a little gun shy to move on from offensive linemen when you let an all pro go? I don't know. I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate of, you talk about hope. You have hope. You have hope. It's like, how much do your past swings and misses affect your future decisions?
That could be something.
It plays into it.
I'm just
It plays
grasping here.
into
I'm
it.
just saying.
You're
I
not.
hear you.
It absolutely plays into it. So,
Yeah.
and they may get rewarded this time. And again, like
They
we
may.
talked about, well, they may, but you don't know until because again, he's a guy that has shown moments. Yeah, the one, Dan, you got to repeat that one again.
Yeah, what is that?
Hope in one hand and crap in the other, and see which one fills up first.
Where'd you hear that? That's ridiculous.
I don't even know if it's a thing. I may have just made it up. I just thought
You did make it up. There's
I didn't
never.
say, put that on a
Listen,
t-shirt.
I've been around the block multiple times. I've heard a lot of stuff. I have never heard that. I am going to just attribute it to you. Any kind of saying like that usually gets attributed to Ben Franklin or Abraham
Dan
Lincoln or Dan Fates. And I'm going to say this one is a Dan Fates original.
Oh my God, Dan, you are one of a kind. All right, let's talk about. I want to talk about just the expectations. Like last year, it was like the Bills are the team to win the Super Bowl. They were going off against the then defending Super Bowl champs and the Rams. And it's not to say that that is not the Super Bowl is obviously the goal and what this team is working towards. But Dan, it feels different in terms of just how much better the AFC has gotten, especially in the division. And do you feel like this team is a bit more of that hunter role as opposed to the hunted? Because I feel like it's a spectrum, and compared to where they were last year and where they are at now, it is a little bit different.
Well, it's a little bit different. I was also thinking about it, the fact of we're coming into this training camp last year was like, this is the loaded 53-man roster. And here we are like nitpicking the offensive line, the pass catchers. We're going to get to the defensive side. Like we're sitting here like
we're nitpicking. I think we're picking here. I think this is issues with these groups.
Yeah, massive picking. Not the opposite of nitpicking, but like, yeah, like this is like, I think the team's in a different place. So while people like to make up false narratives in the media, like the Chiefs being like, everybody counted us out. It's like, hey, like, I think the Bills have, I think the media and the national analysts and all these things have a fair point to be like, this team is not as good as other teams are, which doesn't always mean that the best 53-man roster wins the Super Bowl. So I think it is fair. And I think this is where the Bills feel more comfortable being a little bit of that underdog. They can play it up. They tried to do it all last year when they were favored in 16 out of 17 games or almost every game. So like this is more of their wheelhouse. But it is a little different. The shine is kind of off the Bills. Everybody was like, oh, we love the team and all these things. And Josh Allen, I think that's passed a little bit.
I would say there's a difference, Jenna, to be the hunter when you are ascending. And I'm not saying that they're dropping, but the way the narratives go. And I don't buy the windows closed and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. You have Josh Allen. It usually is several, iterations of the team with the quarterback. This one pushed at the door. Doesn't mean they can't regroup and do it. They certainly have the talent to do it, but it's less of they're the hunters. It's more of people are waiting to say, they are just waiting to say the Bills window is closed. They're not, especially early in the year, if Baltimore is good or the Chargers or whatever, you're going to see, I listened yesterday, everybody and their brother picking them to lose the division. It's the Dolphins are going to be the team. Maybe it's the Jets and all this that they say. That's fine. I would say use it. They need to use it. And so, Dan, when we get to the end this year, and if they've done what they've set out to do, they may be able to say nobody or very few people. Because I think you will go a long way, Jenna, to find somebody right now picking the Bills to win the Super Bowl.
I think you were the one that said this about in the NFL, you're either humble or about to get humbled.
Yes.
And I think the Bills got humbled last year. And I think other teams in the national kind of sphere of things, it's very quick to this team has added this much and this team has added this much. And even we do it. And it's like, wow, they're going to be really good. I expect them to do X, Y, Z and all this stuff. And it's like, I think the Bills got humbled this past season. And at the end of the season, you could talk about all the emotional, mental toll and how that played into things. But I mean, at the end of the day, the team was embarrassed by what happened in Cincinnati in that final result in that last game of the year. And I think that will be a motivating factor. And I think that, like Dan talked about, this team does love being in that spot of being doubted against. What competitor doesn't? Obviously, the straw man argument from the Chiefs. We heard Tom Brady talk about it. They're all his greatness. Like that aspect of no one believed in me. And this season, the Bills have less people believing in them. And that could work to their favor and help push out some of that outside noise that they had last year because there were a lot of distractions.
I agree. I think it is. And I think that can be a good thing. And the other thing I'd say is there's been a lot of focus on, winning, home field advantage, and how huge that was last year. Yeah. That's great. That's great. But you got to play well to win. I think this team is good enough to win anywhere. While they didn't win in Kansas City, we know the kind of game they played a few years ago. I think they can be that team. And I think it's more important for this team to build and be ready in January than it is to just get so focused on those things to set yourself up. You got to be playing well. You got to be ready. And I think for multiple reasons, they weren't going into the playoffs, but they've made some changes, including on the coaching staff. And I think, to your point, Jenna, I do think it was a slap in the face to them. And you heard Brandon Beane at the end of the year. I think the Bengals infuriate them. I think they respect the Chiefs. They know the Chiefs have been better than them. They've beaten them in the play, all those things. I think it infuriates them that the Bengals passed them by, and they have, because they've been to a Super Bowl title games and beat them in the playoffs. I think it drives them crazy that team has done that. Not that they can't get it right back, but I think it drives them nuts.
And you know what else? Like we can talk about pass catchers, and we'll talk about the defense in a minute here. They still have Josh freaking Allen.
Yes.
Like, and this is still a quarterback driven league. And while we can pick, just pick at the offensive line and the wide receivers that we're saying, I don't know where these pass catchers really rank in the terms of the league. They still got Josh freaking Allen, who can absolutely just change things. And we've seen him put the team on his back and carry lesser offensive lines and carry, at times weak wide receiving rooms and do it. So like we're sitting here and we can nitpick and be like, I don't know about this. I don't know about this. And it's almost like we've become numb to the fact of like, they still have 17. And like Joe Burrow said, their window will be as long as Josh Allen is here. So I think sometimes we have talked so much ad nauseum about Josh Allen and how special he is that then we then go, we forget to then talk about him because we've done it for so long and on this channel and all these videos and vlogs and podcasts. And then it's like, oh yeah, don't forget that they still have Josh Allen because he's still really, really good.
Yeah. He put the team on his back.
Okay. Let's talk defense really quick. Sean McDermott taking things over. Talk about, expectations and the pressure being on. Dan, that's going to be a storyline to watch this upcoming season. And do you think that, I think that's fair for the fact for fans to be really keyed in on how that will go.
Yeah, we've talked about in the most recent podcasts and we've done some videos on it. Just the fact of he's got a ton of pressure. He's added more pressure. He has put more on his plate as a coach that is probably under some of the most pressure for any of the coaches. He's not on the hot seat. We've talked about the difference between hot seat and pressure, but he's put more on his plate. And that was his choice. If he wanted to go out and hire a defensive coordinator and somebody that could lessen the load, he could have. He didn't. And how things ended with Leslie Frazier, I guess we still will never really know whether or not Leslie left, wanted to leave, something like that, or whether he was kind of told whatever. Sean is putting his neck out there for this team, especially with his defense, not only in the regular season. That will be one thing. It will be how they perform in the postseason, because that is where this defense at times has fallen short. It is the biggest games. And so that is where Sean is really going out and putting himself out on that limb.
I think he wants the control, Jenna. I think he's
I
saying,
do.
this is the way I want to play it. And he's got help on the coaching staff. It's not that he's going to be totally disconnected from the other parts of the game, but I think he wants that. And we talk about being a Brian Daboll podcast. I think we all love Leslie. I think he did an outstanding job with this franchise. And I didn't really sit there and think he's got to go. But, it's kind of quick for a lot of people to all of a sudden pretend that they were great in the playoffs on multiple occasions when they had opportunities. Place the blame anywhere you want. There's another phrase that it flows downhill. I think you know what we're talking about. And it does. Yeah. And so
not hope.
Yes, not hope. But it does. And so maybe that's unfair. But let me tell you something. We all love Leslie. I hope he moves on to a great situation. But if this defense is really good and excels in the playoffs, nobody's going to care. They're going to be happy whether McDermott gets the credit or not. That's because his team is winning and winning in the playoffs. So McDermott put the bullseye on himself.
Yep.
Jenna, he wants it. I think he wants that.
I think with the control comes the power. That's what he wants. The power to dictate what goes on. And I think that I'm not surprised when we look at the type of person and how type A and how organized and how methodical Sean McDermott is. And especially the fact that this is a part of his past. It's his roots, how he got his job. It makes sense to me that when things aren't going right, it's like, I'll take that over because I want to control that. I want to be the one that dictates what goes on. So, but in terms of his defense, middle linebacker is absolutely a storyline. Tremaine Edmonds, Bears. I mean, Mike, I think we talked about it on the last podcast, but how much stock do you think fans should put into that? And should they be worried?
Well, of course you have to be worried because you can, like Leslie Frazier, right? Tremaine Edmonds lined up every week and played very well. That was, I want to say nitpicking, but it kind of is. He played really well. Like he's a very good player. You knew what you were getting. Oh, you knew what you were getting. You have no idea what you're getting. If they line up with Terrell Bernard or Dorian Williams out there, these guys hadn't started a game, hadn't played a game. Like you don't know what you're going to get. And so sure, it's an issue going into it. It's easy to say they'll be fine. Dan,
they'll be fine.
Here's my thing. I'm concerned. I'm not. It's going to be fine. And Mike, I can't remember what you said. How you're worried. I'm not worried.
I think it's concerned. Yeah, I think concerned is the right word. Only because
I feel like worry is stronger than concerned to me.
It's the guy hasn't done it.
It's
Whoever's
fine.
in there hasn't done it.
It's fine.
Yeah, Dan, we're talking about the play caller on defense. What did Micah Hyde say? We go as the middle linebacker goes. Like he gets us in the right spots. And those guys are really smart football players. But they trusted Tremaine in terms of that to communicate the message. Now, Sean taking over, him attaching himself to one of those players. I think Jenna this isn't like Tremaine got hurt in training camp and now you got to come up with it. This helps in a sense because one of those guys is going to earn that spot and they're going to play. And of course, it's like an oil change. You just put in a new middle linebacker and let him play.
No, we talked last year that where was Tremaine Edmonds on the most valuable players on the Bills defense? 5th? 6th?
I think that's strong. I think because of his role, it makes it a little bit higher. The middle linebacker itself is important. Yeah.
Fair. This isn't a young defense learning a new system. It was more important when you had DeMar Hamlin and Jaquan Johnson playing safeties.
That's fair.
And when you had Trey White out and you had Dane Jackson and some of these
100%.
young corners.
Yeah.
So now you're bringing back the 2 veteran safeties that you always needed. And it's not like Tyrel Dodson hasn't done this at all, which I still think, as we said last time, I still think he's got a 60% chance of winning that starting job. And I've hedged that. I know I've hedged that. What I'm saying is that the fact of this is still like it's not like they don't have a linebacker. They still have one of the best linebackers in the league in Matt Milano. Like, they still have a lot of pieces around that are similar. So this thought of like, Jenna's like, oh, like, I'm not concerned. I think it's going to be fine. I think you're going to miss a 6'5" frame in the middle of a defense. I think that is something you'll miss. But this thought of like, I've always said it's such a backhanded compliment when a coach says he gets him out of the huddle and gets the play in great. It's like, I would hope a grown man can tell 10 other guys what to do in the huddle. I think it's such a backhanded compliment of like, he's so great with the organization. I would hope so.
Do me a favor. Pick up your coffee mug and turn it to the part where it says Dan is wrong. Because you are
there it is.
Yeah, look at him covering it up. Oh, it's wrong, but please.
The other side just blank.
You are oversimplifying this to say that he does that. Yes, you're oversimplifying it. Micah Hyde has talked about, I remember at camp last year, I'm like, I went up to him, we were just talking, and I said, do we make too much of this? You know, Tremaine, he goes, he puts us in spots that we make plays. I'm just telling you what he does. I'm not saying these guys can't get there, and I'm not saying you won't maybe get something else out of those players that you're not getting out of Tremaine, or a combination of players, or as we've talked about, doing things more with a guy like Taylor Rapp, getting him on the field more, having him play sort of that role at times. But it's not that simple. Teams do need that consistency, and it's not just, oh, I called the play, I repeated it. I mean, anybody could figure that out. It's doing it with the recognition that he needs on the field, making changes, getting them in the right spot. And let's just say it's Williams or Bernard starting the first game. They've never done it before. Week 1 against Aaron Rodgers, never done it. So they can come around.
What's going to happen when what's the middle linebacker? It's going to be different when they make a tackle for a loss or actually intercept the ball. That'll be different too.
Okay. Go ahead. Hold your cup up.
Where's your cup? There it is. Dan is
Wow.
That Dan Fates. He's
fired up.
Huh?
How much coffee do you think today went through that cup?
Dan is on dad duty, so it's just Michael and I, and we were talking about our summers, and we wanted to add some. Should we talk about the fines, or what do you think we should do?
Well, let's start with this. You went through a process of moving.
Yes.
I'm moving tomorrow, and it's a pretty substantial move. It is literally down the street but let me tell you something.
Can you see your new house from your old house?
You kind of can if you're in the right spot, but seriously, if I walk 15 feet, I can see the house. So you can, and people say, oh, that makes it easy. Yeah, I can get down there and back in this process. So it's like 10% easier, but you're still moving a lot of stuff that I don't need. She's upstairs. I don't want to say this too loudly. It's stuff we don't need, but we still have. So we're going through that whole thing. I'm running back and forth. I got the contract. Yeah, this is the funny thing. We're doing a little bit of work. Jenna, the contractor, it's not your guy. It's not Chuck, but he's asking me questions. But I don't want to seem like an idiot. So I nod along like I understand what that means. I'm like, yeah, I would think that's the case. What? And I come up with different ways to say, what do you think? Because he's done stuff for us before. But it's kind of like when I open the hood of a car and they're telling me something and I'm nodding like I know. I don't know.
So you're not handy and you're not good with cars.
No.
You're pulling out the wallet.
The best tool in my house to use is the cell phone. So I can call someone who knows what they're doing. And I've tried to learn a little bit. I tell them what I think, and then, but come on, the guy is that my next door neighbor, the new neighbor down there.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. It seems like he can do anything. He can build anything, fix anything. Not me. So we're in the process of moving. So I don't know what this is going to look like. I'm going to try to generate a space there until it's done, but it's a process. I need to get into the new house. I need to get into the new house and get like Tremaine Edmonds called the plays. When I was in this house, everything I was doing, it was like Tremaine. I've done it multiple times. I am the rookie linebacker going in there because everything's going to be different. So
Well,
while
to
Dan
say,
thinks it's easy, let's see how easy it is.
my thing is like the moving sucks, but once you're in the house, it's like you have your to-do list is a billion pages long.
Yeah.
Just like you look at stuff, you're like, ooh, that's a project. That's a project. That's going to cost money. What are we going to do with that? Like all of that.
Yeah. And it's just the normal, you're comfortable in your setting, wherever you've been.
Yeah.
Now all of a sudden,
Yeah.
every part of that is like, oh, that's right. We don't have this space. We don't have this closet. We don't have whatever. And Jenny doesn't quite gather the concept of downsizing, which means you have less. So we're going to be looking for space.
See,
Just
I have
kinda
the
funny.
opposite problem though, where I just pitch everything. And then Zach will
I
be like, what'd you do with that? I'm like, oh, it's gone.
You get away. See, there's reasons you get away with that I don't. And it's
But
like,
I think decluttering.
yes,
See, because
there's a
growing up, my family was very much like as much stuff as possible. And I just hate that feeling.
let me tell you something. There's a dumpster there because of work they're doing. A few things have found their way in the dumpster. Now they're
Yeah,
gone.
you gotta,
Pick my
incognito mode.
spots. Pick my spots. Gone.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
That's fair.
that's what. How about you?
We moved. So for everyone, I now live in the suburbs of Rochester, which has been an experience because I lived in the city for a long time. It's so quiet. It's so quiet. It's creepy quiet. But that's okay. There's worse problems.
Yeah.
Got the fan to help, but no, so I figured we were talking about stuff to discuss, and I love plants. I have a lot of not the plant you're thinking of, people.
Yeah,
Just
she
get enough
loves those
comments
too.
about plants and myself. No, but I was at work and one of our meteorologists, because we work at a TV station for people that don't know, and one of our meteorologists is an avid gardener. And Mike, I shared this with you, but my family growing up called fried dough elephant ears. So our meteorologist walks in and is like, hey, Jenna, do you want an elephant ear? And I'm like, hell yeah, I want fried dough. Like, absolutely. And then he leaves and comes back with a plant. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, I didn't know he meant a plant. I was like, oh, I was too embarrassed to say I thought you meant food.
By the way,
But
I was with my daughter and son-in-law, and he says, he looks outside, he goes, and we got this elephant ear. And I started laughing. He goes, what's so funny? And I told him the story, and they're laughing. And I said, well, Jenna had it on her desk. And he's like, these things are huge. They grow
huge.
massively. So
Yeah.
they did get a kick out of you thinking it was a donut.
Yeah. Well, because
but,
the break room
yeah.
table I can't go past it without eating something that's on there.
Right. But in this case, you got to plant that, right? Out in the burbs. You're planting that, right?
I haven't planted it yet. I think it's not doing great. I've been trying. Sorry.
I think you do. I think you got to get it out of the pot and plant it. Somebody on here will know. Somebody will comment.
I was gonna say,
I
if
think it
anyone
goes in
knows
the ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's usually
In
how
your-
plants go. I just
Well, no, but I'm saying not in a pot. I think it goes
I
in
don't
the ground.
know.
So yeah, I
I don't
think
know.
go around to the other housewives in the suburbs and figure it out.
Oh yeah.
One of them will.
We
tell
bring
you.
down the median age. That's for sure. No, everyone's honestly really nice. It's just weird though when people be like, "Oh, I saw you weren't home," and I'm like, "Are you supposed to tell people you're watching their house?" Like, it's just not like that when you like apartment
No,
wise.
you come and go faster. Now everybody's sort of looking out their windows. They got their coffee cup. They're like,
Yeah.
what's Jenna doing
Yeah.
today?
Yeah.
She's leaving early.
Yeah. Well, I wear my bathrobe outside, and Zach is mortified by that. But I'm setting the tone early. You're gonna see me looking unhinged outside. Leave me alone. I'm at my house.
This is what
All
you're
right.
getting.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. All right. Is there anything else? Sorry, that was just a quick.
No. I know we're
summer,
going to
we're having
continue
fun.
with some. We can't wait till camp gets started. So,
Mike will be moved in.
oh yeah, I mean we're going to be moved in somewhat tomorrow. So, ugh,
You know, we should
ugh.
do a podcast too, a next podcast where we talk about some of our tips for training camp.
Okay.
I think that would be helpful for people who are coming to Rochester.
Yep.
We can do that, and then Fates will
Being at
join us.
camp, getting the autographs, where to
Yeah,
go eat if
what
you're
spots
staying
to
here.
go to, both in terms of at the practice facility or at
and
Fisher
around town.
and
Yep.
around town. But yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Good.
Michael. Oh, BuffaloPlusStore.com for your
Yep.
Buffalo Plus gear. Got my hat up here. Oh,
I
there it
love
is,
the
yeah.
mug. The mugs are awesome.
It's a good size mug too, which is nice.
Yeah, it's great.
And the Dan is right and Dan is wrong is just piece de resistance.
And just
like,
do yourselves a favor. Just turn it to Dan is wrong all the time.
whenever I make my coffee in that, it has to be well. So I designed the mug, and if you realize it's a right-handed mug, so you have to use your left hand to have the Dan is wrong side up.
Yeah.
Chess, not checkers.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for joining us. For Mike, I am Jenna. Dan, of course, will be on our next podcast. Yes, please like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy our content. Leave any questions you have in the comments. Also, comment what the biggest storyline you're following this heading into training camp is for yourself. So, thank you for joining us. We'll catch you next time here on Buffalo Plus. Hope everyone's having an awesome summer.